Hello, I'm Lauren Southern with the Rebel Media, and today here with me for an interview I have Clayton Elliott, one of Gregory Alan Elliott's four sons. If you somehow don't know who Gregory Alan Elliott is, he is the Toronto man who is facing 6 months in jail for disagreeing with and defending himself against feminists on Twitter. Stephanie Guthrie and two of her friends have charged him with criminal harassment after Elliott opposed their plan to start a hate mob and sick the internet on a young man who designed a game that simulates punching Anita Sarkeesian, a prominent feminist blogger, in the face. Gregory Alan Elliott did not at all support this game, but simply spoke out against and called attention to their aggressive approach, stating that their plan to dox and destroy his life was every bit as vicious as the face punch game. Their disagreement continued, and eventually Gregory Alan Elliott was blocked by these activists and aspiring politicians, and blocked them as well. But like most people would, continued to speak out against and call attention to their actions online. It was your average heated political Twitter debate. However, instead of the classic SJW approach of furiously ranting about patriarchy on Tumblr while posting out of context screenshots, it ended in Greg being arrested and charged for criminal harassment. A horrifying result to a simple argument on the internet, something that could potentially set a precedent for future cases regarding freedom of speech and Twitter disagreements. So I've brought Clayton Elliott, Gregory's son, on for an interview. Not only is the verdict of this case extremely important to freedom of speech in Canada, but I think that what these feminists and their hate mobs are doing to people online and in their personal lives is just abhorrent and needs to be exposed. So, Clayton, I've just given the press view of what happened. You and your father have actually been living and fighting this battle for the past couple of years. If you could, can you just start from the beginning and tell us the whole story from your perspective?
Yes, I'd be glad to. I will say, however, it's a very long story. It's a very long story with many chapters and different segues and points you have to elaborate on. So I'm going to give you, it could take hours and hours and hours for me to go through it in extraneous detail. So I'm not going to do that. But I will give you a summary of the last roughly 2.5 years to give yourself and the listeners, the viewers at home, an idea of what's been going on over the last 2.5 years, I guess, since November 2012. So around mid-November 2012, Steph got through into the police with her very limited, selective, and exaggerated evidence. And I believe this gave the completely distorted view right from the beginning to the officer in charge of my father. The officer in charge did his investigation over the next few days after and arrested my father on November 21st of 2012 for criminal harassment. He went to jail for 3 days and had to hire a lawyer to fight his bail. He did get out of jail. The day he got out of jail, his mugshots had already been all over the news, and there was already a number of articles published on him and about him. His boss let him know shortly after that he was no longer to be working at his place of employment. He had been there for around 15 years. His employer did not say outright that he was fired because of these allegations, but I found the timing to be an odd coincidence. At this point, and for the duration of the trial, he was essentially unemployable. His mugshots were all over the internet. His bail conditions prohibited him from touching a computer or using emails, or any internet-ready device he was banned from. And he's a graphic designer. He works on computers. This is the tool of his trade, and he was not allowed to touch it as conditions of his release. During the days, weeks, and months following my dad's very publicized arrest, Steph Guthrie went on a media blitz, doing as many interviews and public speeches as she could. It appeared that these allegations, even though she denied it in court, it appears that they definitely benefited her brand. In January 2013, 2 whole months after my dad was initially arrested, the other 2 complainants came forward, Ms. Heather Riley and Ms. Paisley Ray. They came forward claiming that they were also harassed during the same time where he allegedly harassed Ms. Guthrie, and claimed that they were also actually scared for their safety and reasonably, in all circumstances, fearful for their safety. But they didn't come forward when Miss Guthrie initially did. They came forward 2 months later. And I'm not exactly sure why they didn't come forward with her in the initial moment and lay charges, because there was no further conversation, between
I think I have an idea why they came forward later.
Yeah, well, I have no idea, truthfully. And he was banned. He was not on Twitter. From November 21st, he was no longer on Twitter. And 2 months later, then they came forward with a very limited, even less evidence.
Yeah, just a little suspicious, hey?
Yeah, they claim they sincerely felt fear for their safety. This is what I found out later. Criminal harassment, it means you have to fear for reasonable in all purposes, feel scared for your safety.
But doesn't that depend on the individual? Because I could fear for my safety from someone's puppy. Like, there are people who are afraid of dogs. Like, is that criminal harassment of someone bringing their dog onto my property? Like,
yeah,
going outside with the dog.
Yeah, when we get into the conversation of like what is fear, like define fear, that's a whole other story. And the reality of it is fear, the parts of our brain that are sparked by things that scare us, fear is notoriously inaccurate, and it's designed that way to be reactive and how can I say this? The part of our brain that evolved to feel fear, to perceive danger in our environment, was like the first part of our brain to evolve, like hundreds of thousands of years ago, when a lot of things would kill and eat us. That part of our brain, nothing's changed in it. It is still just as much of a hair trigger. It is still just as much of how can I say? It sees danger. It gets scared of shadows. It sees things and it's like, oh, there's danger. Because the reality of it is, our ancient tribal cousins, if they saw a stick on the ground and they mistaked it for a snake, a stick in the leaves, they mistake it for a snake, or they saw, a log in the water and they mistaked it for a crocodile, no harm done, no damages. But if they saw a crocodile in the water or a snake in the leaves in the ground and they mistaked it for a log or a stick, it could mean they were dead. So
the same way these girls are afraid of a tweet of someone disagreeing with them, it's an overreaction.
Again, fear is notoriously inaccurate. That's why the word reasonable is key in this, because if there's reasonable, if you're threatening someone and there's good reason, then that's a rational and relevant fear. But most of our fears are not rational. Most of our fears are not they're not reasonable and they're not rational. This is human physiology and human psychology. I'm not pointing at them in general. This is every single human being who has a brain and a lower limbic system. So I digress. But back to the story. So they came forward, they laid their charges. 2013, I forget what month it was, we go to pretrial. So the lawyer's like, I don't think this, he had a feeling that it wouldn't go past pretrial based on the evidence that he had in front of him and based on the evidence that we had been able to pull up ourselves. But to my surprise, the Crown pushed very hard for trial and said that there's no way that these charges are being dropped. They're pushing forward with them. So that was it. They decided then that they were going to set 5 days for early 2014 for trial to begin. And then the rest of 2013 was just a waiting game. So then January 2014, we show up the first 5 days, not first 5 days. I think it was like January, like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, something like that. We show up for 5 days of trial. In those 5 days, we don't even get through the arresting officer, the expert witness. They brought in another officer who's supposedly the expert on Twitter, and Ms. Guthrie's examination and cross-examination, her testimonies. We don't even get through that in 5 days. So during that short little time period of Ms. Guthrie's testimonies, we discover through her testimonies that her, as well as the other complainants, and up to about 15 or so more parties, many of which remain unnamed, had convened a meeting at Paisley Ray's home in roughly July or August for the sole purpose of determining how they're going to quote unquote deal with my dad. And in their testimonies, they say, coming out of the meeting, none of them have any recollection of what exactly was decided during this meeting. In their testimonies, they say that was what the meeting was for, but we don't remember exactly what the action items coming out of the meeting were going to be.
That's insane. They're plotting,
So that was the rest of
legitimately plotting against him.
That's what it appears. That's what it appeared to our lawyer. That's what it appears like to us. And so August, he starts getting bombarded. He starts getting attacked and attacked and attacked. And then beginning of September it was, or so, there's some tweets coming out that say, there were just so many, there's so much back and forth. It wasn't like one side of him just attacking and attacking based on the tweets. And again, in the tweets in question, I'd never seen him tweet. I didn't speak about him tweeting, and they were not able to actually verify that he was even the one tweeting. So that's a whole other story there. But after the first 5 days of trial, a whole lot of questions started coming up. Articles started getting written. And for me, I started seeing like what was going on here. Because up until then, I had read evidence, read disclosure, but had never heard these people say anything. And March, it gets adjourned. So then we have March 20th in May into July, another 5 days of trial they schedule. March 20th, we show up. Before we can even start, a letter the judge brings to our attention, a letter he received from a person claiming to have been present at this meeting, and claims to have knowledge that there was a conspiracy to fraudulently come together and lay criminal harassment charges against my dad. Now, this letter was not admitted as evidence because it's very inappropriate for any judges, lawyers, anybody to consider evidence after disclosure has been presented. Like to just kind of let anybody write letters and the judge just kind of putting them in, like it's not appropriate. So we adjourned it for another day for them to do their investigation. Nothing came of it, so it's not an exhibit in the court right now. We came back May 2014, wrapped up with Ms. Guthrie and her testimonies. Again, I'm not going to go into the details of what was said. All that information is for public record. It's all available for anybody who wants to request it from the courts, all the transcripts. So if you're interested in getting the exact verbatim verbiage that was used in those courts, you can do that. That's totally up to you if you decide. July 2014, I forget the exact days, Ms. Heather Riley comes in the stand and starts doing her testimony. Again, I'm not going to share my opinions on it. I have my opinions, but I much prefer people to read the testimonies themselves and make their own opinions. And I'll leave it at that point at that. I can say during my observation of these testimonies, because I was there for all of them, I cannot, if my dad was guilty of something, if I truly believed he was, and I truly believe he did something abhorrent to make these women feel scared for their safety, I would not be on his side. I wouldn't back him unconditionally no matter what. And I can say that based on the evidence I've seen, I did not see any reason to believe that they had reasonable and accurate fear for their safety.
So if this was the other way around and it was the ladies who were being silenced or were legitimately harassed, you would 100% support them?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter who it is. If tables were flipped around, I would support the person actually legitimately being harassed, being ganged up on, being attacked. It's like I said, I'm by no means going to take my dad's side just because he's my dad. I'm not going to play favorites in that way. Everybody's going to say, yeah, sure, whatever. You're just going to say that. The truth is, if my dad did something legitimately criminal, then that's his responsibility, and that's something he's gonna have to deal with. But nothing in this case so far that I've seen makes me believe that. So again, disclosure, transcripts, evidence, final submissions from at least the defense side, all available for those who want to read through it and make up their own mind.
So what did they tell you when they arrested your father? What grounds did they have to arrest him? Did they just come in and put cuffs on him?
So let me recap. On November 21st, the day he was arrested, They came to his house early in the morning. He woke up to a knock on the door, heard them knocking. The first thing he did was he called me, and he said, "Are you okay? Are you and your brothers okay?" And I said, "Yeah, we're totally fine." And he's like, "Okay, well, the cops just came knocking on my door." And I said, "Okay, what for? Did you do anything wrong?" And he goes, "No." He goes, "I did nothing. Like, I have no idea why they're here." And I said, "Okay, cool." At the time, we really had no idea why they'd come there for, but we found out later on the police wanted him to turn himself in, and we found this out later on. But we still had no idea for what. They wouldn't tell us for what. We went there to the police station, turned himself in. He was put under arrest for criminal harassment. They still didn't tell us who made the claims. I asked them because I was the one who took him there, and I said, "Who's the complainant?" And they said, "We can't tell you that right now, but he'll be going to Old City Hall for bail court, so just show up there." I said, "Okay, cool." And I was very specific. I said, "Will he be released, or will he need a bail hearing? And are they pushing for his detention? For whatever it is, will he be released, or do I need to call a lawyer and have a lawyer show up there? Or can I just show up there and talk to duty counsel and he'll be released into my custody, without an issue?" And they said, no, there's not a problem. We're not too worried. There's no one's telling us he's going to be detained or they're pushing for his detention. So it should be totally fine. Just show up. So I said, okay, cool. We still had no actual details about this. So when I actually went to the bail hearing and I showed up there, turns out the duty counsel came to me and she said, "Actually, you're going to want to call a lawyer. They are pushing for his detention. They want to hold him for the duration of his trial." And I was like, "Well, that's funny. The officers the intake officers, they never told me that." So I had to call the lawyer. The lawyer couldn't come that day. The next day the lawyer came, but the officer couldn't come. And then the next day, so he was in jail for 3 days. And on the last day, we had a full-on, hours-long bail hearing, and the Crown tried everything in her power to keep him detained, which blew me away because in the bail hearing, the only evidence they presented in the entire bail hearing, the officer in charge, he did a testimony, and they presented 9 tweets. I believe it was a total of 9 tweets, completely distorted and out of context. It didn't show the conversation they were part of. They were just screen grabs of tweets, he said. And they weren't actually even directed or even indirected to Ms. Steph Guthrie, the only complainant in the case at that time. So 9 tweets taken out of context from conversations with other people, not Steph Guthrie. And these were the only pieces of evidence they presented in a bail hearing where they actively and aggressively pushed for his detention.
That's mind-boggling. They went to his house and arrested him based on 9 tweets that were not directed at Steph Guthrie.
Whatever else they had, they did not show it in bail court, because I was there in bail court and I had to get up on the stand and testify in bail court to these 9 tweets that I had never seen before in my life that were taken completely out of context, and asked what I thought about them. And I said, I don't even know what these tweets are. I don't know who they're to. I don't know if he's responding to someone else, sending things to him. I'm like, I can't even form an opinion about this. And the Crown kind of looked at me and took them back and walked away. So she fought for it. And then the only reason that she conceded to his release was under the conditions that he cannot touch a computer, that he cannot be in possession of an internet-ready device. So he had a smartphone. We had to take his smartphone and get him a little pay-as-you-go phone, a crappy little non-internet enabled device, which is what he's been using for the last 3 years. So it just blows me away that essentially he could have still been in jail 3 years later had that Crown got her way in that bail hearing. So, and the judge said, she goes, "I see no threatening tweets. I see nothing here that would make me believe that this man is a threat to this woman. And because of that, I'm going to release him." So that's all we got at that early stage. That's all we got. And later on, they started trickling out disclosure. But at the time of arrest, 9 tweets, and that weren't even to the complainant.
So your father has been banned from going online, but the individuals who accused him have not. Do you feel that this has affected the case in any way? And especially considering your father cannot go online and defend himself or speak up for himself while these girls are free to do so. And he can't go online and find evidence or anything. I guess the lawyer would do that, but...
Yeah, I think the fact that he was banned from using computers, from touching computers for the whole duration of this trial has greatly affected this case. in probably more than one way, more than a couple ways, but there's two that really, for me, are the ones that upset me the most. The first and probably the most serious way that it's impacted the case was his ability to gather evidence for his own defense, to build a defense for himself. It was incredibly difficult because he relied on my brothers, myself, and a few other friends to essentially have to sit down with him, be the person in front of the computer with their hand on the mouse and their hand on the keyboard, while he would sit over their shoulder and give us instructions and tell us, okay, go here, search this, do that, pull that up, go to this website, Google this. For sometimes, like, I can't even count how many full days I did that, and my brothers did that. And it was incredibly strenuous on us. It was incredibly stressful in our relationship. And at the end of the day, he's the only one, who would have known exactly what was going on. He couldn't have outsourced this and delegated this to the lawyer who's charging an hourly rate to defend him. The lawyer's not going to sit down for 12 hours a day compiling evidence, online. And we were the only ones who could do that for him. So the fact he wasn't actually able to build his own defense and do it on his own will and volition, I think was a serious impediment to his ability to defend himself, which is his right, his absolute right.
Was this taken into consideration by the Crown? Was it taken into consideration by the judge?
I think, well, this was the issue. The judge at the bail court was not, she's bail court judge, and she was not the judge who was presiding over this case. The Crown, who was the Crown at the bail court, was not the Crown who was presiding over this case. They're all members of the Attorney General's office, but they were different crowns. When she pushed for these conditions, I said, like, in the bail court, I said that this can't, like, he can't have these conditions. He works, because up until this time, he still had his job. And I told him, I said, he works on a computer. Like, I told the lawyer, I'm like, he works on a computer. We can't accept these. And the lawyer pretty much said, he was like, they're not going to let him out unless we, agree on something here. And he's like, we kind of, we either get him out and we agree on these, or we don't agree on these, and he potentially gets, like, he gets left in there. So I'm like, okay, well, like, we'll do it now, but at some point we got to get these amended. We got to get these conditions, like, changed so we can actually maybe use a computer, but not use Twitter, not use social media. So anyways, once he got out, we tried to do that, and the Crown was having none of it. And it was only, like, down the road, once the evidence started coming out, that she even entertained the idea. But up until right now, at this very moment, after the court, all the trial's done, we're just waiting the final deliberation. We still don't have an amended bail papers that says he can use a computer for X purposes, for work purposes or for whatever, but can't use, Twitter or social media. We still don't. So as of right now, he's still not touching a computer because it's still his bail condition that he cannot touch a computer. So
wow,
that was the first one. And then secondly, his name was slandered and tarnished and destroyed all over the internet. There was all types of people that came out after this happened, and they said all types of horrible things, continued to say horrible things about him that he was not able to say anything about. So people who came out who were on the fence and didn't know, all they heard was the side against him spewing all these lies and all these hateful things about him, and hearing nothing from his side to defend himself. So, there's the court of public opinion, as they called it, where the complainants and their friends and everybody on their side are the judge, jury, and executioner. And they had free reign to say whatever they wanted and talk to whomever they wanted about him. I don't know exactly what they said. I don't even know. Like I said, I haven't spent all my time reading through every thousands of these women's many thousands of tweets. I'm not, I just, that's a full-time job that I want nothing to do with. But I know for a fact there was a lot of people talking poorly about him because we pulled a lot of these tweets up. We pulled a lot of these things up and put them into evidence. And they were brought to my attention. So if they were at least a sample of them, I'm pretty sure there was more. And again, like I said, he's not able to build his defense for the case, and he's not able to defend himself online and offer people any other perspectives, any alternative angles to consider this from. It was just their angle. Theirs was the official story, and he's there in silence. So I think that was a big one. And then the fact that he couldn't work. By trade, he is a graphic designer who works on a computer. Being banned from a computer being banned from the internet in the modern day and age is for someone in his line of work is a career killer, especially at his age.
Sorry. Yeah, even just being banned, like not being a graphic designer, that is, you have to have the internet today to interact with people. You have to have it to do anything. That's an insane bail conditions to go through, and I can't imagine 3 years of no internet. And I think you were saying before that him not being able to reply to people on Twitter or being inactive for 3 years, that makes him look like the guilty party. And a lot of people don't know that he just wasn't allowed. I didn't know until a week ago that he wasn't allowed on the internet at all. So I was like, why hasn't he tweeted since then? And that's tough. That's really tough, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely in this modern world, it is a career killer. And for anybody who works in computers, like, his job fired him. If he even went and Googled it, if he found any other work, they'd say, well, what are your qualifications? And at 55 years old, at 53, 54, 55 years old during the duration of the trial, his skills are not, how can you say, diversified. You know what I mean? He can't go work with his hands and do general labor somewhere in the meantime. He doesn't have these skill sets. He's done this job for 15 years. If he loses his job, the best thing he can do is go do the same job somewhere else. But it's like, going to someone and saying, okay, you can't, you're charged with these crimes and you're a carpenter, but don't touch wood and don't touch nails and don't touch a hammer, and then go pay for your legal defense. It's like, how is that person going to do that?
And that's even before there's been a verdict. That's before he's been proven to have criminally harassed anyone.
Yeah, like, innocent until proven guilty. But even while he's innocent, the punishment begins the day he gets bail, which is you can't touch the tool of your trade. And it's one thing if he was like a cyber terrorist and he had like hacked into like serious military sites and like, but you're a threat to the state at that point. And I can totally understand them banning you from touching a computer as part of your bail conditions. I totally get that. But if it's one thing to say, like, I tweeted people, the allegations stem from tweets that made someone feel scared for their safety. Like the gap between him and like the guy who is like the intelligent like cyber threat is so far that I think these bail conditions were extraneous. And
honestly, I think this would have happened. I think everyone I know on Twitter has sent out similar tweets, even more aggressive, more nasty tweets. And they would, it just blows my mind to think that if Stephanie Guthrie or other individuals were to make the same complaints against myself or other people for disagreeing with them, we could be banned from the internet for 3 years. We could be put in jail. That's mind-boggling. Wow.
Yeah.
So he would have been put in jail for 3 years if he didn't accept those conditions, you're saying?
Pretty much. In the bail court at that moment, the lawyer kind of like leaned on us and said, listen, we kind of got to accept these because the Crown is not wanting to let him out. The Crown is pushing for his detention. And, we got to kind of meet them halfway on this. And this is the meeting halfway. So like, even though we kind of told him, like he's the one arguing for my father's release. And he said, if we don't give them something, like they're not going to really want to, concede to his release. So that was that.
Well, goodbye freedom of speech in Canada. I didn't realize it was that bad. I figured that he just got put in jail for 3 days and was released because they didn't have the evidence. I didn't realize he could stay if he didn't accept those terms. This case has already been a straight on freedom of speech in Canada before the verdict. The fact that can happen, man, I'm so sorry.
You don't got to apologize for it. He did nothing wrong, but thank you for your sympathy and compassion.
There was a letter that came out that was supposedly by or someone claiming to be yourself or one of your brothers, and it was can you confirm for us that from your knowledge your brothers and yourself do support your father and did not write this letter to now deal with a lot of people online trying to impersonate yourself and your father potentially?
Yeah, that wasn't my brothers and that wasn't me. And anybody that came forward saying that is lying through their teeth, making stuff up. And again, if they want to come forward and swear under penalties of perjury and put their name on the record and say this happened and I will testify to it, that's an entirely different story. Anonymous comments online, there is so much misinformation that is being spread out about my dad, and like the lies are incredible. Like there's some other person on Twitter who's saying, I wish I had right in front of me, that my dad was following these women around, taking pictures of them, tweeting their whereabouts from pictures he took. This never happened. This
There's
person,
zero proof. Zero proof of that.
Zero proof. There's no evidence at all that this happened. And this person's tweeting it, and it got like hundreds and hundreds of retweets and shares, and like people are believing it, but it's just not based on the facts of the matter. She's making it up. So this is the reality right now. The truth of the facts of the matter at hand are not benefiting the complainants or any of their friends and what their friends are out there saying. So they're not using the truth. They're not speaking to the facts before the case. They're not speaking to any of the evidence before the case. They're just making up these other things.
And with your father's been banned from speaking online and defending himself online. And you're seeing all of these people that don't care to read the transcripts in the court or ask for them. Or so is that why I'm guessing you came on to do this interview to clarify all of this? Because you and your brothers and your father haven't really done any interviews yet. And it's all just kind of been people online hearsay, right? He said, she said.
Yeah, like again, up until I'd like to finish my point on the story first before I dive into those ones. To wrap up the story, December 2014, we show up for the final complainant, Miss Paisley Ray, to do her testimony, and she was pulled. I think it's important to make note that the Crown pulled her. Either the Crown pulled her, and I'm not sure which one it is. Either the Crown pulled her or she withdrew her charges. One of the two. And exactly why, I'm not sure. And all I know is up until that last moment, the Crown thought they had enough to push forward with it. And up until that moment, they thought they had enough to arrest him and lay charges on it. And at the time, the moment of truth, when she was supposed to be getting up and saying her testimony, they just kind of wove the white flag and acquitted him on those allegations. So the rest of 2015 was a waiting game, essentially. We were just waiting for the lawyers to put together their final submissions. And July 14th, the lawyers did their final submissions. And October 6th this year will be the final verdict. So I just wanted to make sure I hit those last points to sum up the story. And you asked me, the next question was?
Oh, yeah, no, I was just asking about, with your father being unable to defend himself online and all of these people pretending to be you and your brothers and your fathers and just kind of making up these stories, are any of these made up stories or fabricated tweets or anything being taken seriously in court? And how do you think it's affecting the case with the three of these ladies who have accused your father being allowed to create all of this, some of it false content, and spin the story online?
Well, anything that's been created after his arrest that was not submitted in disclosure is not being considered in court. The judge is not considering it. The Crown is not arguing for or against it, and neither is the defense. They've done a very good job at not allowing the court of public opinion to interact with the actual real live court, and not allow hearsay and all these other made up frivolous claims floating around in the Twitterverse and in the interweb to affect the facts before the court. So
that's good. Regardless, I'm sure it must affect your personal life with all of these people slandering and lying about your father and your family potentially.
You know, it's just depressing. It just depresses me people like this exist. I don't spend time looking into all of it. That would be a job that I would not wish on my worst enemy, to sit there and try to go through every little bit of nonsense that essentially trolls are out there making up. So it's sad that it's happening. It's definitely, definitely sad that this exists in society and in the world, but I try not to spend too much time diving into it. At least over the last few years, I definitely have not. Since the day of arrest, I've been spending some time interacting in conversations and reading through conversations and getting an idea of what is being said out there, because at the end of the day, like I said, my dad cannot defend himself. He cannot come on and correct any lies. He cannot come on and clear his name in any way. And there's a lot of people out there who aren't even aware that he was banned from the internet as part of his bail conditions. So they think his Twitter account just went silent and hasn't been active because he is hiding something, when in actuality he's banned from even touching a computer. So, you know, I'm saying this now because now what I've noticed is a really aggressive attempt to discredit his lawyer, to discredit Christy Blatchford, who has sat through essentially a good chunk of the trial so far. She sat there taking her notes, and you know, to have people note, she is one of Canada's like preeminent reporters for one of the largest and widely distributed you know publications in the country. She didn't get that position by making up and falsifying and inaccurately reporting. She sat there, and the same things she heard the Crown say, the same things she heard the complainant say, and the same things she heard the judge say, and the same things she heard the defense say, all the same things I heard, she reported on it. Now, if anybody who's criticizing her reporting and the story she's written went back and read the court transcripts, they would see a very consistent alignment between what she's saying and what's actually been said in the court. So, you know, there's misinformation, but misinformation is based on non-truths and lies. The truth is the truth. So like, there's no way you can spin the truth. The truth is the truth.
Luckily, I think that Christy Blatchford's article has brought some awareness to what is actually going on, and reasonable people who aren't buying into all of the twisted versions are starting to come in tune to how insane your situation is. And I just wanted to ask, because I know you did start an IndieGoGo campaign to help out with your campaign funds, and I hope that this interview, as well as Christy Blatchford's articles and other journalist articles, will be able to bring attention to that. But your father was fired from his job, and how you guys have managed to pay for these charges, I don't know. Some people think that this is a civil suit, but from my understanding, it's a criminal charge and not a civil suit, meaning that the accusers did not have to pay any legal fees whatsoever, and you guys have racked up, what, $80,000 in legal fees so far?
Yeah, give or take.
Wow. That's just insane. So Guthrie, friends, absolutely nothing. Just point a finger and you're up $80,000 in legal fees. I'm going to post your IndieGoGo campaign in the description on this video, or get Rebel to post it in the description, because I think people in Canada, in the States, anywhere, if you respect freedom of speech, you need to go and just help Greg Alan Elliott out and his family, because it's wrong. It's wrong that this was ever brought in front of a judge, that this was ever taken seriously. And I'm so sorry that you're going through this. Sorry, I'm not being very professional reporter-like right now, getting emotional. But next question, I just wanted to ask what your personal thoughts are on freedom of speech in Canada, and do you think that this case will set a precedent for future cases regarding freedom of speech and Twitter disagreements?
My personal belief is that freedom of speech is one of the most important, I believe, a human right in any free and democratic society, in any country that believes they are a free and democratic country that is founded and based on the rule of law. I think it's paramount. And I've traveled to countries, I've visited countries where there is no freedom of speech. It is not considered a human right, and it is not valued in the laws of those countries. And what I've seen is political and just general corruption is the cultural norm. And anybody who speaks out against it, anybody who tries to call attention to it, is attacked or jailed or worse. And, you know, I don't want to live in a country where people who speak out against the vicious attacks of others are themselves arrested for speaking out. You know, I don't want to live in a country where there are prisoners of conscience. And in this specific case, my father spoke out against what he believed was a vicious attack, and he called attention to it. I believe. Sorry, you're going to say something?
No, keep going.
No, I was going to say, as our lawyer mentioned in court and in his closing arguments, he said, if Greg, if my dad is found guilty, if his honor finds my dad guilty, based on the allegations before the court, based on everything in this case, it can have a chilling effect on freedom of speech, both offline and online. And political discourse in this country can be seriously damaged, because all it takes is, if he was convicted and precedent was set in this case, all it would take is someone who has certain political agenda, certain political beliefs. Let's say they go out and they attack someone else. This is based on their political ideologies. And someone speaks out against them. And they were to say, don't criticize my stuff. Don't talk to me. Don't speak my name. Don't talk to me. And someone says, no, you're still doing this. I'm going to call attention to this. And they say, don't do it. And again, they say, don't do it. And you're calling attention to this thing. That person could essentially go to the police and say, I told them to stop. They didn't stop. And now I'm scared. Now I'm scared they're going to kill me. Now I'm scared they're going to hurt me. And I think that, I want to live in a country where we are innocent till proven guilty, and that the guilty are essentially convicted and are served justice. But I don't want to live in any country where it's easy for an innocent person to be convicted of a charge. I don't want to live in a country where people who I consider and who are just generally by society standards and by the general public's opinions and by lawmakers' opinion that they're not breaking the law. I don't want new laws to come in and that suppress freedom of speech, that make people really, really scared to say their opinions about things, whether they're widely held or whether they're, some fringe opinion. There's a quote, and I think it really does sum up my stance on this. I don't agree with what you have to say. This is a Voltaire quote. I don't agree. Actually, it's a quote from Voltaire from a book. I don't agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And I think that really is I want to live in a country where everybody kind of believes that. You don't agree? That's fine. I don't agree that what you're saying is right, but I'll defend to the death your right to disagree with me. So.
And this is what I don't understand about the individuals, a lot of the feminist kind of progressive community supporting Guthrie and the others pressing charges against your father, is this affects them as well. This affects everyone's freedom of speech. Right now, there may be a large amount of support for feminist ideology and progressive methods of attacking those who disagree with them. But one day, I don't know if you've ever heard the "First they came for the socialists" poem. Yeah, then they came for me because there was no one left to stand up. But it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're hardcore feminist and you agree with Guthrie's stance. This is a freedom of speech issue, and one day it could affect you. It doesn't matter if this were the other way around. I would 100%, as you said you would, defend Guthrie if it was her voice that was being silenced. This affects everybody. It's an issue of, are we allowed to express our opinions, or are we not allowed to express them if it offends someone? And the obvious answer is, if we're in a free and democratic country, you're right, we should have our freedom of speech. We should be allowed to. And that's why this is such a terrifying case. And I hope that people can grasp how important this is, that your father is found innocent and that we support him and that media speaks up and supports him.
Yeah. Yeah. Like for the record, I want to state, if the tables were flipped, tables were turned around, and it was Ms. Guthrie sitting in jail or on the defense side of this, and it was my dad and a group of his friends, who knows how large this group is, but it's definitely my dad and his friends, and they decided, this other guy over here, he did something that offended us. He did something in poor taste, and he did something that was supposed to be a joke, but it was totally not funny. And because of that, we are going to attack, we're going to dox, and we're going to destroy his life. We're going to make this poor joke he did, because I believe a poor joke, I do not agree with that thing either. I would never have made it, but he has the freedom to do it. And if people want to laugh at it, they can laugh at it. But he did it in poor taste, and it got escalated. It got escalated to something so much more severe, where they tried to destroy his life and his livelihood. No one knows if this man has mental issues, that he's not dealing with mental health issues. No one knows if he's a caregiver to potentially an elderly mother or grandmother, that his job is supporting him and his family. No one knows anything about this guy's story. It was just destroy, ruin him, destroy him. If she had stuck up, if any one of the complainants had stuck up to my dad and his group of friends who were attacking this person for doing that, and in doing so, she was arrested, any one of them was arrested by this group who turned on them and got one of them arrested, I would support them. Hands down. You know, like, I don't think it is ever appropriate to publicly name and shame with the intention of destroying someone's life for doing something that is a bad joke, a tactless, poor joke in bad taste. I think that is escalation. And I truly believe in a free and democratic country, we really need to learn de-escalation strategies. Everybody, the public, the politicians, the police, everybody needs to be better at de-escalating things and not escalating them more and making them even more intense and more harmful. So
if anything, it looks like them meeting up and deciding they're going to dox and try to destroy your father's life. It looks like he was the one who was criminally harassed. Just looking at the situation from the outside, I can't imagine going through that. That must be heartbreaking for your family.
Yeah, it's been hard, and like, I don't want to downplay how hard it's been. I'm not going to sit up here and cry and start whining about how hard it's been. It's been very hard, and it is our lawyer's belief, and it was in his final submissions, that if there was anybody harassed here, it was my dad, and I would agree. I would definitely agree.
And how confident are you that the verdict will deem your father innocent?
I have sat through every day of trial, pretty much every day of trial. I have listened carefully and intently to every single word that was said by the complainants in their examinations in chief and their cross-examinations. I listened to everything the Crown said and all her arguments. I listened to everything the lawyer said, and I listened to every word the judge said. And based on all I've seen, heard, and read over the last 2.5 years, and also based on our lawyer's belief, we are confident that my dad will be found not guilty, that he will be acquitted on these final 2 remaining allegations. But again, there's always that chance that he won't. There's always the chance. It's up to the judge. And, to give the judge credit, that is the smartest man, the smartest human being I have ever encountered in my entire life. Nothing got past him. Neither side was able to slip a single thing by him. To just watch him thinking about things and coming to his conclusions, I was humbled by his intelligence and his comprehension and understanding of law. So, it's up to him and his perspective of the evidence that he sees and how he interprets that through a legal understanding. And again, I'm not a judge. I don't have a law degree. I've spent some time studying some law and trying to understand it with all this stuff. And I'm confident he'll get off. But again, it's not my decision to make.
Well, that certainly gives me hope for you. And hopefully listeners' spirits will be lifted as well. And I'm sure you've still got, regardless of if he is found innocent, you still have all of these legal fees and you've still been through the 3 years of this hell. So I just want to tell listeners once again, if you can, what is something that everyone can do to help you out? We've made a petition for your father. I will put that in the description. We've got the IndieGoGo campaign. Is there anything else that you can think of that listeners and myself can do to help you out and your father out?
It's a good question. I think the number one thing is that IndieGoGo campaign. Right now, there is nothing we can do. Like, all the evidence to be considered in this court case is before the judge. He's heard it all. He's heard the final submissions, and he's making up his mind over the next couple months. But my dad took a big hit financially for this. And if he can recoup any of that, this would really do a lot for his emotional and spiritual well-being. You know, like his financial well-being, like anybody who's been through tough money challenges like this understands how it affects your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. All of those, he's taken it's taken his toll. It's taking its toll on all of those areas of his life. So being able to kind of get a cushion and get some of this back, especially from people who support him, and realizing people out there actually support him, would do a lot for his recovery, and a lot for his, you know, getting back on his feet, dusting himself off. So when this is all done, August 6th, and, you know, praying that he gets acquitted on this, that he can start getting back to his life. He can start doing work again. He can start looking for a job again, and he can, you know, start putting this behind him. Another thing would be, you know, if you're on Twitter, follow him. Follow his account. As of October 6th, October 7th, if he's acquitted October 6th, October 7th, he'll be back on. You know, he'll be back on, and he'll be, you know, interacting, engaging with people. Follow him at Greg_A_Elliott. And if you see people online attacking him and trying to discredit him and spreading lies and rumors about him or his kids, you know, interact with them. Say, hey, cool, you got any proof of these claims? Please direct me to the proof. Show me your evidence. I'll be glad to consider it. You know, if you can convince me of Greg's guilt, please give me the evidence that's made you come to this conclusion, and I'll consider it myself fairly and objectively. And, you know, if people online start seeing that there's other intelligent, rational, level-headed people who are looking at the facts before them and are making up their mind for themselves, and he starts seeing that there's more support out there, and other people start seeing there's support out there for him, I'm hoping that there'll be some kind of easing to these attacks, because, you know, it's got to stop somewhere. You know, it's got to stop somewhere, and I don't want, and for the record as well, for anybody who's watching this, who's considering, please don't go attacking these women. Please don't go trying to destroy their livelihood, trying to destroy their lives, you know, sending them hateful, horrible messages and death threats. I don't approve of this, and he does not approve of this. And anybody who's doing this is not doing this to our benefit, and not doing it because we're asking this or we're suggesting this or recommending this. This is abhorrent behavior on any side of the fence, whether you're on their camp or you think you're with, you know, Greg's camp. Like, it's not cool. There's too much hate in this world, and we don't want to be part of it. And, you know, it's never cool. Harassment's never cool. And there is things that are actually harassment, and then there's things that are defending your beliefs. And please, just, you know, you're intelligent people. You know the difference, what you're doing, if it's harassing, or if it's defending someone, or if it's engaging in passionate political discourse, or if you're harassing someone, or you be the judge of that. But I just kind of want to make that point.
And, let's make this a positive thing. If your father came back online and he had thousands more Twitter followers, and we can get that, what was the tweet that you wanted to get going to support him? Hashtag.
Oh, hashtag freedom of tweets, capital G, capital A, capital E. Freedom of tweets, GAE. And, you know, start putting it out there. If you believe in your right to have freedom of tweets and to express yourself on Twitter, please use that. At some point down the road, we'd like to drop the GAE and just have it be a conversation, a public discourse and dialogue for anybody who wants to engage with the topic conversation, and have it then just be hashtag freedom of tweets in general. But for the meantime, while we're still trying to, you know, rally support behind my dad, freedom of tweets, GAE would be a cool hashtag to start trending, and see what dialogue comes up around it. I'm very interested to see that myself.
Is there anything else you wanted to elaborate on?
As far as, you know, the facts of the matter, the evidence before the court, and how it was gathered, who brought it forward, you know, what is in evidence that is being considered. And, you know, when we went to court and we got disclosure, and the Crown put her numbered exhibits into the trial to be considered by the judge, in the closing submissions, there were roughly 66 or so numbered exhibits to be considered by His Honor. Of those 66 exhibits, the defense submitted into evidence the majority of those. Potentially like up to 90% of those were submitted by the defense, not by the prosecution, not by the complainants, not by the officer in charge, by the defense. And they were accepted into evidence by the complainants and by the Crown and by the judge. The only reason they're numbered exhibits is because they were accepted. They were authenticated and they were accepted by the complainants, by the Crown, and by the judge, which means a serious amount of evidence that is now being considered was not presented in the initial discovery, investigation, and presentation of evidence from the complainants to the officer in charge, from the officer in charge to the Crown. A significant amount was completely omitted. Only later on to be discovered and to be put to the complainants in cross-examination and to be accepted as factual and truth.
So was it yourself and your brothers that discovered this evidence and brought it forward that wasn't brought forward by the individuals who are accusing your father?
Combination. It was the lawyer and his legal team, his clerks. They found a whole bunch. It was myself and my brothers with our dad like literally sitting over our shoulder like this that found a whole bunch of other stuff. And we would sit there, like I said, for hours and hours and hours, pulling out stuff, pulling out information and packaging it and sending to the lawyer. And then in the days of cross-examination, he would bring it out and he had it all printed out and he would put it to the complainants and said, did you send this? Do you remember seeing this or so on and so on? And they accept it. If they said, no, I don't remember seeing that, or no, I never sent that, they denied it outright. It did not become a numbered exhibit. But it was only the things that were authenticated that became numbered exhibits. So like I said, of 66 numbered exhibits, we provided the majority of them. The defense provided the majority of them. And I think that's make of it what you please. Just never sat well with me personally.
Mm-hmm. So when you would bring forward these exhibits, why were these individuals who were accusing your father, they were trying to just get through these cases by taking pieced tweets or taking tweets out of context, presenting them and omitting all these other tweets that you and your brothers had to go and find to bring up? Would the court not take that into consideration as well as being somewhat suspicious and disingenuous?
That's for his honor to decide. At the times, he's not making decisions in the middle of anything. He's considering things. He's letting the Crown and the defense argue for or against admitting evidence or not admitting evidence and so on. Sometimes things would not be accepted. They become a lettered exhibit, or like they only partially accepted, so become a lettered exhibit, and some things outright were not even accepted. But the ones that were accepted were just added to the evidence. And at the end of it all, when he's now making his final deliberation, he's looking at the evidence that has been accepted, that has been acknowledged as part of the case, and that's what he's making his decision on.
So far, it seems like you have a pretty strong case on your side. And what's the exact date that he's going to decide the verdict?
October 6th, 2015. He will have his verdict.
Wow. I guess you guys are really anticipating that. And Guthrie as well. Is there a lot of media coming out on Guthrie's side about the upcoming verdict that you've been watching or paying attention to?
What I've noticed, because I've been reading all the articles, I've been reading everything that comes out, and what I have noticed is fewer publications, a diminished diversity of publications writing about it and covering it. When it first happened, when he first got arrested, there was a number of publications that released, blogs and articles about it. Some were just reporting the fact, what happened. This guy got arrested for allegedly doing this and so on. Since then, many of these publications have not written any follow-ups. They've written no pieces elaborating on the next stage of trial and the next stage of trial and what happened in this stage of trial. The National Post has been the only publication that consistently through almost the whole trial, except for the days where Christy Blatchford was not present. She can't write about what she's not present to see herself. But every day that she was there physically in person, taking notes, she wrote a piece on. And like I said, any recent articles that have been written, I've seen none come out that were in their favor, because I don't think the facts and the truth before the court work in their favor. And I
And
think,
did your dad get a chance to read those Christy Blatchford articles?
oh yeah, yeah. As soon as they come online, I call him and I read them to him as soon as they come online. So he's been, again, all these little bits with the truth. You know, say the truth shall set you free. And I think that having a lot of it come to the surface, and again, this is people are intelligent. They can make up their own minds about what's going on here with all the facts, with the full facts. You know, like when like I said, accuracy of facts and truth is important. It's critical, especially for things like this. Otherwise, people are forming their opinions on partial information, omitted facts, misinformation, and I think that's dangerous. So I'm very glad and very grateful for Christy Blatchford's accurate and honest reporting of the facts before the court.
And I'm sure your father is grateful too, hearing those stories and knowing that the word is getting out there online and people are hearing what's actually happening. Because there are a lot of people, you can tell, there are a lot of people talking on Twitter about this, a lot of people hashtagging I stand with Gregory Alan Elliott, and he's got a lot of support. So
yeah, and you know, gratitude implies like a favor's been done. She did us no favors. The beginning of the trial, when she first was reporting on this, the angle, the perspective, the tone of the arguments were not pro Greg. They were not like pro Greg, you know, anti the complainants. She actually painted them in a very good light in the beginning. She actually wrote articles where it looked like she was like having compassion and sympathy, and it sounded like she really truly was like feeling what they were going through. But as the facts continued to present themselves and she continued to do her research and look at the evidence, you know, she again is impartial. These aren't based on her opinions. She's writing these things. This is based on what was said in court and what was, you know, facts before the court.
and that's how it should be. That's how it's
yeah.
Just facts there out.
Yeah. If the defense if the prosecution in the final submissions had made a final submission, you know, there would have been more for her to speak on that side, but the Crown did not. She made very, very brief closing submissions, and you know, people can make of that what they want, but the facts are the facts.
Once again, I'm so sorry that you and your father and your family had to go through that, and just thank you so much for doing this interview. And for those watching, there are ways to help out. If you value freedom of speech in Canada or just justice in general, I really do encourage you to donate, even just $1 to help out Gregory Alan Elliott and his family. It truly is an issue that affects us all, and the verdict will set a precedent. As you said, we could live in a world where someone can point a finger after a tweet and they could go to prison. We don't want that precedent in Canada. We don't want it in America. We don't want it anywhere. If you don't want to donate money, you can go and sign the petition just to show your support, or do the tweet hashtag freedom of tweets GAE. And Clayton, your family has gone through a lot more than just these charges. When we spoke earlier about doing this interview, you told me that your cousin, who has been diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, they need money for his medical costs. So I know you have a fundraiser for that. If you want to mention that as well, I can share that on my Twitter as well as in the link below.
Yeah. So yesterday we did a car wash for my fundraiser for my little cousin's fundraiser. Essentially, he's been diagnosed with a incredibly rare genetic disease called, see if I can remember it, dyskeratosis congenita. It's a very unresearched and relatively new to science, to their awareness, a disease that affects the genes of young boys primarily, and it is it's horrible. It's horrible. He's I don't even know. I don't want to describe it too graphically, because it's really a horrible thing to be diagnosed with. But he's 5, and you know, he's battling every day for his life. He's getting weekly blood transfusions that are keeping him alive. He's in line for a bone marrow transplant. in the next few months. And this all happened, he got diagnosed, the symptoms started coming out in November of last year, when it was about a week after my uncle was laid off from his job. So he started getting sick, and months and months and months. They spent months in hospitals, like months, and just he didn't leave the hospitals for months, and he was hooked up to IVs and machines for months, and only recently found out what was causing all these other symptoms. They thought it was aplastic anemia. They thought it was this, and turns out congenital dyskeratosis congenita causes all these other things. So there's a chance he'll get a slew of cancers throughout the rest of his life, and that all these things will happen to him. And so the family's struggling right now. They're struggling to pay the bills and keep going, because they have to be with him every day. So his name is Oliver Ferguson. I'll share a link to his crowdfunding campaign. His if you go to in Facebook, it's Ollie Strong, OLLIESTRONG, Ollie Strong, and then there's a link to the cookie jar crowdfunding campaign, and there's about 12 days left in that. But you can always reach out to the family if you have any ways, or know of any ways that you can support. They can definitely use it.
All right, and that will be in the description as well, for sure, because I just hope that everyone listening, I know I'm going to go donate myself, because this is something I feel we could all help out with, your family right now and everything they're going through. Anyways, thank you so much again for the interview, and I have my fingers crossed for a good verdict for your father and for both your fundraising campaigns.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lauren.
For sure. So this has been Lauren Southern with the Rebel Media. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, and please look at the links in the description. Bye.